Next, we move on to Ramesh and Suresh constructed a new house in the year. In the national income accounting, this transaction is considered as, it's again very simple, they constructed the new house, and house is always considered as a fixed investment. So here option B, the construction of houses is considered as fixed investment, and this is because it represents an investment in long-term capital goods. So here option B is the correct answer, that is a new house is kind of a fixed investment. Okay, then we have the second most asked type of a question, that is true or false, wherein they would give 2 or 3 statements and which of the following statements are true are to be answered. So here we have statement 1, that is Narasimhan committee recommended reduction of SLR and CRR. So we have studied what SLR and CRR is the statutory liquidity ratio and the cash reserve ratio. Then we have statement 2, that is Narasimham committee recommended that directed credit program should be promoted. So these are the two statements that are given over here, and we have to identify if both are true or both are false. One is true and one is false or not. So we'll just look into the theory part first, that the Narasimha committee recommended the reduction of SLR, CLR and CRR. So that was the first statement, and that's true. However, it did not recommend promoting directed credit programs. So the second statement given was that it directed credit programs, but it did not. So that is false. So we can come to a conclusion over here, that is statement 1 is true, but 2 is false, and thus option C would be correct. So the committee suggested that directed credit programs should be phased out or reduced to make the financial system more market oriented. So it was not to be promoted, it was to be reduced in order to make more financial system more market oriented. So here we have option C, that is as the correct option. Then we move on to the next question or the next statement, that is statement 1 is Zamindari system was introduced by Lord Cornwallis, and under this the land were held jointly by communities. So by reading this itself, we would understand that the second statement is false, that is it was not held jointly by communities, it was held by the zamindars, right? So second statement is false. So we can cut out these two options, and the only remaining options or the confusion would be from D and C. So let's look into the year as well as the other details. That is, it was given by Lord Cornwallis in 1793 as part of the permanent settlement in Bengal. So here we can say that statement 1 is true and statement 2 is false. So again, we are having option C as the right answer. That is, Lord Cornwallis, he gave the Zamindari system in 1793. And it was not the second statement. It was not held by communities. It was held by the landlords or the zamindars. Next, we have again 2 statements. So as I earlier mentioned, such 2 statement questions will be asked very frequently. So it's important to understand such questions and answer accordingly. So here we have the first statement. Here it's somewhat different because one is labeled as the assertion A and the other is labeled as reason R. So we'll read the assertion first. There is automatic change in the net tax revenue when level of output changes. And the reason given for it is automatic stabilization moderate aggregate spending in times of boom and slowdown. So, in the light of the above statements, choose the most appropriate answer from the options. So, the options given are both A and B, A and R, that is the assertion as well as the reason are correct, and R is the correct explanation of A. Then we have A and R are correct, but is not the correct explanation of A. And we have A is correct but R is not, and A is not correct and R is correct. So these are the options that we are having. We look into the answer, and the answer given is option B. That is, A and R are correct, but the explanation is not valid, or the explanation is not the correct explanation for the assertion given. So we can read the assertion as well as the reason again. That is, automatic change in the net tax revenue when level of output changes. But it's not the only reason why the net tax revenue changes. Okay, so the automatic change is a direct consequence of how taxes are levied on income and spending, which fluctuate with the economic activity. So again, we have such a question that states the assertion, that is, India's public sector helped in the development of a sound industrial base, and the reason given is public sector is under state control. The role of state in formulating the appropriate policies and providing financial and other support has helped the public sector. So that's the reason given for the development of this sound and sound industrial base in India. So let's look into the answer, that is option B. That is, while state control and support have been essential for the public sector, it's not the sole reason behind the contribution of the industrial base. So here we have again option B, that is A and R are correct. Both these statements are correct, but then R is not the correct explanation, because that is not the only reason, or that is not the only reason behind its contribution in the industrial base. An assertion and reasoning question. So we'll just read it first. So given below are two statements, the assertion and the other one is labeled as reason. So A is given as theory of social goods provides rationale for the location for the allocation functions of the budgetary policy, and the reason given for it is there are certain goods which are non-rival, and these are important for maximizing the social advantage. So when we read the first and the second question, how do we connect these questions with the we can just use because in between, and we can see if both the questions or both the statements are connected or not. So when we read the first question individually, it's correct, I feel, and even the second one is correct. But then when we connect these two, is it correct or not? That's what is asked. So just try to put because in between and read the sentence again. So if it matches, then both these statements would be correct. So now we look into the answer. So the answer is given as option B, that is both A and R are correct, but the R is not the correct explanation of A. So we can just read R once again, that is, there are certain goods which are non-rival and these are important for maximizing social advantage. So what was A? Theory of social goods provides rationale for the allocation function of the budgetary function. Budgetary policy. So when we read that, we can understand that allocation is mentioned, but the social goods, it provides more functions, or there are more actions as well. So here we can see in the explanation that it does not fully capture the rationale for the allocation function, as it also includes non-excludability, merit goods, externalities, and other aspects. So R is not complete explanation. So we can say that R and A both are correct, but it is not the complete or the correct explanation of A. So the answer given over here, B, is the correct option. Next, we can see country A requires 2 units of labor to produce a unit of X and 5 units to produce a unit of Y, whereas country B requires 3 units of labor to produce a unit of X and 6 units to produce a unit of Y. So here we can see it's international economics. We have already learned the absolute advantage, the comparative advantage theories. So connecting to that, we can read all the 4 options. That is, A has absolute advantage in the production of good X as well as Y. Then we have B having the absolute advantage for both goods, and C option is Though A has an absolute advantage in the production of both goods, it has a comparative advantage in the production of Y. And then we can see option D, wherein B has an absolute advantage in both goods, but there is comparative advantage of X. So when we look into the production of both the countries and the units of labor involved, we can see that country A has 2 units of labor that is used to produce X and 5 units of labor to produce Y. So here itself we can see that the number of laborers involved in the production of goods X and Y is relatively less in country A than country B. So there we can see an absolute advantage that country A is having. Along with that, we can see that the production that country A is having, say of Y, is comparatively or is a comparative advantage. So let's just check the option or the answer first. Yeah, so that's option C, where we have A is having an absolute advantage in the production of both goods, and it has a comparative advantage in the production of Y. So why is that so? The explanation given over here states thus that a country has an absolute advantage when it can produce when the production of the good, if it can produce that good with fewer resources than another country. So that we can observe in country A, wherein they can produce a particular good with fewer resources, that is less number of labor, and country A uses fewer labor units for production of X and Y, and therefore country A has an absolute advantage. Then we can see that a country has a comparative advantage in producing a good if it has a lower opportunity cost of producing than the good compared to another country. So here we can see that country A has a lower opportunity cost for producing good X. So that's why we can say that there is a comparative advantage in the production of Y. So next we move into, according to the Pareto criterion, of movement from A to state B is desirable if all agents are at least well off in B as they were in A, and at least one of them is better off. That is the first option. In second option, we can see that no one is better off. In the third option, it's written if the agent will with lower welfare are found to improve their welfare in B in comparison to A, even when those with higher level of welfare in A are found to witness decline in welfare. And then we have option D, that is if in B all the agents are having lower difference in the level of utilities. So we can look into the answer first, that is option A. So just it's very simple, just remember what a Pareto criterion is. So that is at least it states that the change or a movement from one state to another is considered as improvement if at least one individual is better off and no individual is worse off. So that we can see in option A, and this means that the overall welfare of the society increases if at least one person's situation improve without causing any determinant to others. So here we can see compared to all the options, A is the most suitable one, and thus we can say that the option A is the correct answer. Here we have the answer first, but we'll just discuss it as well. Out of all these, as the method that I usually use, I select the ones which I know very perfectly. That is law of invisible demand is Adam Smith. Then we have then King demand curve is Sweezy, and principles of maximum social advantage, it's given by Dalton. I'm not sure. Okay, so these are the two options that I know very perfectly. So I'll just look into the options first. D should be 4, and out of all these, only these two options are having D as 4. Then B3. B3 is there only in one of the options. So we can say option A is the correct answer. So now we can discuss it as well. The concept of industrial district, the first one, industrial district, it was introduced by Alfred Marshall, wherein he described industrial districts as the geographical areas where firms and industries are concentrated and where there are significant benefits due to the proximity of these firms to one another. So here we can see the concept of the industrial district that was originally given by Alfred Marshall, where he says that the geographical areas of firms and industries are connected and it has its own benefits and due to the proximity of firm to one another. So that is the concept of industrial district. Next we can see